Lowery, just look at that name and you can tell she's very proud of a certain accomplishment back in 1986. Fran Harris, former national champion at the University of Texas.
Captain of the 86 team. Excited to have her on today.
Excited to be here, guys. Mike, to think about it, all started as an intern at Channel 24. It's amazing what can happen over 40 years almost.
That's right. March of 1987, I walk into the KVU sports office to be an intern, and a couple of days later, I go back to work again, and who's there? I'm like, oh, my goodness, it's Fran Harris. Oh, my gosh, this is incredible. I was in awe.
That's awesome. My God, that's fun.
Do you miss those days? Do you miss the days at UT?
I do. I mean, I miss the carefreeness of it all before, tax days and, bills and car notes and mortgages and all that. Those are fun. They're fine. But, just getting up, making sure you're at class, going to practice, and then going to the training table. I mean, that was pretty much our lives for a really long time and playing basketball. So I do miss the innocence of all of that for sure.
Yeah.
What was it like? And I always ask this. I know Lissa McBride and Cheryl Hoglund, but what was it like playing for Coach Conrad? I always held probably two people, 60s, 70s, 80s, that generation week when we came through. I was the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
That I thought that Coach Royal and Coach Conrad kind of epitomized. They were kind of the Mount Rushmores of UT sports. Sure. I really held them the way they handled themselves and carried themselves. I just really looked up to them.
Yeah, so did we. Yeah, so did we. I was doing an interview yesterday, and Stephen Foster said, the host said, Coach Conrad she was like a fairy godmother in most of our eyes, but probably to you guys, she wasn't. I said, no, that definitely not fairy godmother.
I've heard some stories. Yeah. She's tough.
Yeah, she was. But she was like what you saw in the coaching from a coaching standpoint. She was extremely calm and never like she yelled, and what are we doing? Whatever. But there was never these irate tantrums. I didn't realize how much I appreciated that until I started doing television and saw coaches and went to shoot arounds and those kinds of things. But what you saw was pretty much who she was. Very demanding, very clear cut about what needed to be done to play, to excel, to be great. But there was no, I bet she's a Jekyll and Hyde. There was none of that. There was never any of that. And I appreciated that because you got to focus on being great instead of focusing on you got to go recover from what your coach said to you in practice or in a game.
Always professionally. She's always sharp dressed. You ladies were her gals, her ladies were dressed. You just handled yourself so well, so professionally.
We always understood that it was bigger than basketball. That from day one, we knew that it was bigger than basketball. We knew we were going to be expected to perform in every area. In the community was very serious. In the classroom, on the court, just everything was really set forth in terms of the standards. And I'll share just one quick story. When we would go on the road, we would have these rules that we had to abide by. And one of them was we went to a restaurant, you could only get so many things. Like you weren't going to get a water, a tea, a Coke, right? Just some discipline, because most of us had never left, our small towns. I'm from Dallas, but I'm from Dallas, and you go, you do whatever you want to do. And she was like, no, one drink, one bread, one meat. This is not a buffet. It was those kinds of things. If we go to the convenience store after a game, because there was no restaurant in College Station, we could get 3 items. You weren't getting Coke, what do you call it? Cupcakes, soda. You got 3 items. So you were very particular about what you were going to eat post games if we could not get to a restaurant. But it was those kinds of things that at first you thought, this is nuts. But you came to appreciate that you don't need to do the extravagant stuff. Just keep it simple. There's discipline in every area of your life. So we started making fun of her about those kinds of things. Yeah, we made fun of her about that.
How frustrating was it for you and for her and for all the players, especially your first 3 years, not going to the Final Four? Because you look at Jody's record, she didn't get to the Final Four that many times, and you only made it the one time when you won it all.
Right. So the year before I got to Texas was the year before the NCAA had instituted the 5, we were playing NCAA. So she played in the AIAW National Champion, right? So they got there then, played for a title, didn't win that one. And then I thought, maybe that there were people on the NCAA board who were Aggies who kept sending us to Ruston my first 2 years. I got sent there to play Louisiana Tech in our first season. I was at Texas and the second season, so we didn't get past them because they were amazing.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Admit it. Did you hate Kim Mulkey at the time because of that?
I did not. I really admired Kim. Because I admired the way she played. I admired, the general aspect of her game.
The pigtails. I remember the pigtails.
The 2 cornrows.
Flying around the court. No one could cover. It's great.
Yeah, she was mean. She was very mean, for sure.
But, Still is. Very competitive, yeah.
Yeah, they were great. And so the only reason I didn't want to go there is because you knew it was going to be tough beating them. We would have had to have grown 7 inches at every position and played a perfect game to beat them because they were the prototypical champion-style team.
Now, that sophomore year of yours, when you won the state title, you didn't get to play, though, in the end, did you?
I did not, because that was my first year playing basketball ever.
Ever.
Nobody knew that. Like, I literally did not play basketball until that year.
Yeah.
And so I went to South Oak Cliff, storied tradition program, and got there and played on JV and, busted 30 every game on JV. And then at the end of the season, he moved 3 sophomores up. And so I was one of those. And so I did not get to play in that tournament. That team was 40-0 with the likes of Dennis Rodman's sisters on that team, Ramona Dozier. They were a college team. Not even joking. That team was a college team. That team could have vied for a national title as high schoolers. They were that good. Yeah.
Number one, Dow, I saw the Liberty Hill South Oak Cliff game. South Oak Cliff just won a state title in football this year.
Mm-hmm. I was there.
How you got to have to walk us through that. You must have been one heck of an athlete. How do you to go into a program you just described and never played basketball? How do you just walk on as a sophomore in high school and say, Coach, I want to play? I mean, how did that come about?
Well, interestingly enough, I did come from a great basketball family. My brother Alonzo played at South Oak Cliff and then went to Lon Morris, which some of you may remember. And then he played at TCU. So he was very good. He's 11 years older than I am. But my next to the oldest brother was Larry Joe Harris, who was one of the best guards to ever play in the state of Texas. He was flashy. He was electric. He was amazing. And his team lost. And I was in Gregory Gym in 1974 when his team lost to Houston Cashmere. So basketball's always been in my life. I watched it a lot. But the interesting thing, guys, is that my mother was like, I'm not dealing with all of that. I don't want to be on the road. I'm not carpooling. I'm doing all this. You're going to be a scholar. Forget scholar athlete. You're going to be a scholar. So my entire upbringing was doing, a little bit of here, maybe just to be active. But she didn't really necessarily want me to play sports. So my oldest brother, Alonzo, went to her and said, listen, I've watched her messing around in the driveway and just, shooting. We had a basket out there and everything because my brothers played all the time and I watched them every day. And he said, if she's as good as I think she can be, you won't have to pay for college. And miraculously, all of a sudden, my mom let me play basketball. So because the free ride was involved, I got to play. But to your point, it was tough that first year because think about it. If you don't play sports, you don't know about oxygen. They're very important things of, stamina and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And I had a very tough time. And Coach Blair did not think I was going to make it. Because it was so tough for me. But what he saw was that I had a jumper. Like I could shoot because I'd been doing it in my front yard for years. Yeah. Not playing with anybody, but my brother just taught me how to shoot. And, the object of the game is to put the ball in the hole. And I was very good at that immediately. So it's cool.
That's one of the most amazing stories that you really, you were around it, but you really weren't involved.
Nope.
Playing organized. It sounds like nothing, no organized sports, just kind of around with the brothers playing pickup games. That's an amazing story. That's for people, especially in a skill sport, that's not easy to do.
It wasn't.
Show up at 15, 16 years old and say, yeah, I want to play on one of the top teams in the state.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I did play. My first sport was actually soccer. I played that for about a week, but I grew up in Dallas, so that explains that.
A week.
Hot out there. And then I was softball, also too hot. And I was like, I need an indoor sport. At some point,
climate control.
Gotta be climate
control. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
No, thank you. No, thank you at all.
You didn't play soccer at Keystone Polk area?
Yeah.
That's where I played when I was in elementary school.
Yeah, that was it.
The Red Devils.
I was like 8 or 9 years old, and it was too hot out there. No, thank you.
So after missing out on getting to play in that state championship year, you make it back to the Final Four state championship in your senior year, and you lose.
Yeah.
Now, compare that to going out as a winner your senior year in college.
Oh man, well that year we lost to Victoria, and Jan Lahudney, who was the coach at Victoria and is back at Victoria East now, coaching with Yolanda Wimbish, who I played with at Texas, who beat me that year. So she had a great game in that state title game, and I sucked in that state title game. And she put Yolanda, she had her face guarding me. It was like she was not going to let me touch the ball. Yeah. And I had to struggle for everything I got in that game. So losing like that was tough because that's the last time people see you in your high school uniform. Yeah. And then getting to Texas, really fighting for not an encore performance in terms of the way my career did is really a commitment that we made after we got beat in my junior year in Western Kentucky. After we got beat by Western Kentucky in the Irwin Center. When we were hosting the Final Four.
Yeah, that was when the Final Four was going to be at home, and everybody thought y'all were going to win.
That was the hardest. That was probably top 5 lowest points in my athletic career. Yeah, was hosting the Final Four and not playing in the Final Four. Yeah, and losing at regionals to a team that some people say they snuck up on us. They were playing amazing basketball. But I will say, and I don't say this jokingly, like I do question that call. I do question that last call. How can you throw the ball in, somebody jump up, get the ball, come down, go back up and shoot a shot in 2 seconds? How is that even possible? The clock didn't. Okay, you said I have a little PTSD. I got a little traumatic syndrome here going.
That sounds like the 72 Olympics with the Soviets when they let them throw it in 3 times,
Oh my gosh. Seriously, the clock did not start.
Fran needed a replay back then.
We did. We definitely did. No question about that. But that was hard. But it positioned us. It got us in the right mindset to go out the next year and obliterate teams and get to our ultimate goal.
Take us through that not only a national title run, but a 34-0. Not many teams have done that on the men's or women's side. It's been done a little bit more frequently in the years since, but that's a rare feat, the undefeated season.
Yeah, and we didn't start out well. So the first game, I think we opened with Ohio State, and I hit a last-second shot to win. Like that was tough. It was the pressure of the expectation, right? It was the pressure of being the second or third year that we were ranked number 1 to start the season out. So not only us the year before to start this next campaign, the senior campaign, we were ranked number 1 in the country, expected to finish number 1, expected to win the national championship. And we opened up at Ohio State, and they were amazing, coached by Nancy Darsh. And we struggled that game, just the tension and the pressure of the expectations. But we eked out of there. And once we got out of that game, and that was on the road, obviously, after we got out of that game, we kind of relaxed a little bit in terms of the expectations. But I tell you, it wasn't until we were 19-0, and I remember which part of the season this was, maybe end of conference, middle of conference, or something like that. But Jody brought in a team building specialist. And the ironic thing about that is that we were 19-0. So, we're thinking, why are you bringing in a team building specialist? We're already amazing. Clearly, we're undefeated halfway through the season. But of course, that was the smartest thing. She knew better. That was the smartest thing she could have done, because what that team building specialist did is that they shook us up. They understood. They made us understand that things we were not talking about, because there are always things in your team that are kind of rumblings underneath that you're not talking about, but you're still kind of succeeding. She made us talk about those things. She made us address those things. And it was difficult, but that is the thing that got us to fight harder for each other and go into the trenches deeper for each other after that break, that conference, middle of conference break. And after that, we started playing amazing basketball.
And a big part of your growth that year, team-wise, was a young freshman by the name of Clarissa Davis.
Yeah.
And, as she got better and better and more comfortable, but was it tough on you as a star of the team, but giving up some of that stardom to Clarissa?
That's a great question as well, because I actually was Clarissa's host when she came in. from John Jay in San Antonio. So I knew how great she was. And I also knew that she could literally have gone anywhere and started, right? Because she was good enough to start for us. And she and Annette were kind of playing the same position as you guys remember. Annette Smith, all-time leading scorer in Texas women's basketball history, amazing, had gotten hurt the year before, tore her ACL, and came back. So Annette wasn't going to be on our team. So conceivably, Clarissa would have been starting that year if Annette had not been there. And so 2 things I say about that. Number one, I knew Clarissa wanted to play in Texas, so we had that as an edge. But she was pretty salty about not starting. She was pretty salty about not going somewhere, and she could have started or whatever. But the fact that she wanted to play says a lot about Clarissa. And as we know, she went on to become one of the most heralded players at the University of Texas, in terms of awards. But for me, no, it wasn't difficult at all. I knew for us to get to that next level to win, we were all going to have to make some adjustments. And what's remarkable about our senior season is that we had 8 players who averaged 13 points. Now, that's not a lot of points for the average. But for me, I'm a high volume shooter and scorer. So I went from averaging 20 points to 15 points to 13 points. And what that tells you is the better we got, the less important it was for me to score a lot of points. 8 people averaged 13 points in my senior season.
The balance was there. You could spread it around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I got to tell you, my freshman year, 1985 at the University of Texas, and I go into my English class. There were about 25 freshmen in there, and one of them is Clarissa Davis. And we have to go around, we have to introduce ourselves, saying, hi, I'm Mike, I'm from Duncanville, Texas, blah, 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 blah. Clarissa says who she is, and most everybody else in the room is like, I'm like, that's Clarissa. Wow. Nobody knew. By the end of the year, they knew.
Yeah, without question. She was amazing. Even if I watch that performance today, that's one of the most remarkable Final Four performances I've ever seen, man or woman. Amazing. 32 points. Like, I know her stats. That's how great she was in that game. That's how great she was.
Hearing you talk about Clarissa and just everybody, what I've always admired about so many of the women basketball players at UT that I've gotten to know through the years, especially in the late 80s and early 90s when things were a little more open to get to know them, is they're so close. It's such a close family. And to this day, when I talk to them today, they're still close with each other. And I admire that. That's such a great trait of all of you.
Yeah, and it's not accidental. It's not accidental. We were always together. I mean, back then, think about it. In the 80s, it was rare to have a car. So I didn't have a car until I graduated. We had 2 cars. We probably had 2 cars on our team. Shell Boland, because she was an only child. She had a car. And then Cammie and Chris had a car because we thought they had money. Both of them had cars. We were like, whoa, you guys really have money. So there were like 3 cars on a team. I think Hoglum had a car as well. But it was very rare. So we spent a lot together during those times. But the story I love, when I talk about it not being accidental, everything that we did was very intentional. Jody made sure of that. But Clarissa loves to tell the story when she came on her recruiting visit. And we were having the festivities for the recruits. And we were playing at a park. And we were playing flag football. And Clarissa and I walked up. And I was about to get into the game. And so we started playing. And Clarissa says, you guys were killing each other, like over flag football, like it was all out brawls and fights. And she says, I understood the culture of this team. We win at everything. We compete at everything. We don't give people passes. Like she said, I saw that in 20 seconds and I wanted to be a part of that. Yeah.
That's cool.
It was bloody all the time.
But isn't that the reason why some athletic teams are so great? Because you have that type of personality?
Yeah, without question. You got Cammie and Chris were sisters. They would literally fight. Yeah. I mean, Cammie, if they guarded each other, we would be like, oh my gosh, let somebody else guard Cammie, somebody else guard Chris, because we knew it was going to be a fight. And one time Chris did something like foul Cammie, and Cammie like ran her over, and Chris was like, you fouled me or whatever. And Cammie said, don't reach. Like that was how they were. And it was always some broil, some kind of brawl about to happen in practice almost every day, especially that senior season for us, because we were about the business of getting for sure.
I ask all our guests, especially in our age range, all of us that played in the 80s, early 90s, whatever, how's the game evolved? How's the women's game evolved? Athletically, and everybody always says, well, the athletes are better, their training's better, the whole deal.
Yeah.
But how have you seen the women's sport evolve since you played?
So nobody ever says this, but the athletes are better because the training is better, right? It's not just the athletes are better, the training. It's like the athletes become better athletes because they have better training.
And nutrition, the whole bit, right?
Yes, the entire package. We've technological advances, nutritional advances, game advances. But even as I was at an event yesterday, my brother is a trainer in Dallas, ironically, my younger brother, Christopher, and he's doing a showcase of like these graduating seniors. And I mean, these girls are rocking and coming through and finger rolling, whatever, because they do that every day in their training. And so when I look at the girls who played, when I played, they were extremely athletic. But think about it. You went to practice and you play games. You didn't play club ball. You didn't have a personal trainer. You didn't have a skills trainer. You didn't have one. Those girls would have been even more amazing if we had had that level of training. And so that's what but I do love that about it. It's also what I hate about it. It's also what I hate about the game now is that so much attention is driven toward, your individual game or whatever. And you add the portal in, you add all that. And sometimes the players forget about building something special with their teammates because it's really all about what they can achieve. And sometimes it's difficult.
That's a great segue because I noticed this in baseball. Those guys' swings are way better. They've been coached so much and they've been drilled and skilled since they were 6. Their pitching mechanics, the whole deal. Sometimes, though, what wanes, I notice, is the running the bases, the instinct part of the game. Do you see that in basketball as well, that they've lost a little bit of that? Everything's club-oriented and showcase-oriented in baseball. If they lose that, what you were saying, the team element and just some of those individual instincts that comes how to win a game.
Yeah. And the mastery, what you're saying also is the mastery of a skill. The interesting thing about yesterday when I was talking to them, I told them my story about I didn't start playing until I was 15. They were like, what?
That's incredible.
Said, you think about that. I scored almost 3,000 points in high school. And I just started. And I was the 4th leading scorer in Texas women's basketball history when I graduated. Okay, now I think I'm 7th. But really, and that's from a girl who didn't play basketball but for 2.5 years before I got to college. And I said, but that only happened. That wasn't because I was amazing. That was because my brother said to me early, okay, you might not be the fastest. You might not be the quickest. You might not be this. But the object of the game is to do what? And I was like, to score. And he says, but if you can score and if you are the best shooter on your team, I don't care where you go, you are going to play and you're going to be an all-star. So I remember that. I remember thinking, okay, I'm not the fastest. Okay, not the strongest, but I mastered a skill. And that's what is missing. And I told those girls that yesterday because they're going to Oklahoma, they're going to Texas, they're going to, all these places. I go, and yet I look at you and you haven't mastered thing. You will feel little things well. You do this. I said, because it takes discipline to master a skill in your game. So I said, I guarantee you, if you get out of here and you just say, you know what, I'm going to be the best rebounder. I'm going to be the best shooter. I'm going to be the best passer. Right. And then you complement that with other skill development. You're going to be amazing. But if you continue to be these, generalists for everything in your sport, it's going to be hard for you to excel. I said, you get a scholarship, but you're not going to be great.
Isn't that the attitude that got you into the WNBA after not playing for several years?
Absolutely right. I mean, think about that, Mike. So I retired from basketball because I was pissed that I was the last person cut from the Olympic team in '88. So I decided I'm not playing basketball anymore. This thing is too political. I don't want to be a part of this. So I literally quit basketball at 23. And then when the WNBA started, I kind of found my love Jones again for basketball. And the first conversation I had with myself after I called the WNBA and they wanted to know what my interest was, right? Because they were like, you haven't played basketball in 8 years. What is it that you think you are going to do in the WNBA? So I said, okay, this is what we're dealing with. The first conversation I had with myself after that conversation was, okay, let me figure out what I have in my toolbox that nobody else has. And so I started making a list of, okay, I got this experience, I got this. Okay, physically, what do I have? Well, I was 31 at the time, right? I am smarter than these players coming out of high school. I know what coaches look for. And then I'm just going to focus on the intangible. I should be there. No, that's be there. But if I focus on the intangible in this tryout, 250 women tried out for 2 spots at Houston. If I focus on my intangible, make sure the shot is there, my leadership, my communication, I'm gonna make it. Literally, that was a conversation I had with me the day before the tryout. Yeah. And that is exactly why I made that team. So, I mean, think about it. I got Cynthia Cooper on my team. They really don't need me to shoot, but I showcase those skills. But what I did in that tryout is that I was a leader in that tryout. Uh-huh. I was a leader. I knew what to do on defense. I knew what to do on offense. And that's why I was chosen. Yeah. I knew how to fit in. I knew how to be great in my role.
Yeah. That was going to be one of my questions. How did you do the 8-9 year layoff? But then after hearing your high school story, I'm like, that's old hat for her. I mean,
right.
I mean, you know, that's right. She's got them right where she wants them. I mean, who just sits out of a skill sport for 9 years and then goes and plays at the highest level? I mean, that's really no. You didn't. The Olympic thing in '88 was so frustrating that you didn't even try to go play overseas or anything.
I played overseas the year before in preparation. Right? Because I already had a plan. I'm a planner. I know how this works. You go do this, you go play for a year, you come. And I was on the top U.S. national teams leading up to the Olympics. And in Olympic training camp, the coach, who was Coach K. Yao, I got the clipping, said Fran Harris is the best player in camp besides Teresa Edwards, which, if Mike knows, is like the highest compliment. That's how great I was playing in training camp. And the reality is, I've said this on the record before, I got placed as an alternate so that a Tennessee player could be on the team. I've said that publicly. I'm not going to ever back off from that. At that time, Pat Summitt was the Gino Auriemma of women's basketball. Mm-hmm. So at that point, there had never been an Olympic team without a Tennessee player on it. And there were already 3 Texas players. Clarissa got cut earlier. Andrea and Cammie, we knew they were going to make it, and then I was going to be the third. So yeah, I was pretty bitter about that. But I did go back overseas 2 months before my WNBA tryout. I literally reached out to an attorney. I was like, listen, I got to go try for the WNBA in a couple of months. Can you give me a job? Can you give me a job overseas? He was like, yeah, Switzerland. I was like, Switzerland? I don't even care what the team is like. I'm going to Switzerland. So I played in Switzerland for like 60 to 90 days before my tryout. Yep.
Good warm up.
Another smart move.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, that's great. And a couple of hoop it up.
How has your career, it's kind of a loaded question. It's pretty common sense. A lot of us have chosen business. Has that helped you? The ups, the downs, the work ethic, the habits, how's that helped you in your business, business ventures?
One of the toughest parts of my career at Texas was my freshman year at Texas, when I didn't understand that it's like this for all of us. What got this is going to be enough to get you to the next point, to the apex of the next level. And so I, breathe a sigh of relief, got a scholarship at the University of Texas. This is about to be cake. Like, I'm about to go in here and kick some ass, and at Texas, and realize I was at the bottom of the totem pole again, and didn't realize that the load of playing in college athletics at the top university in the state was going to be as tough as it was. And so what I learned through that experience, because I would have to tell myself this every day just to get through practice, is just keep going, right? Just keep going. And that is my mantra in every single business endeavor that I'm in now, because like my business partner and I are building a sports facility near Dallas. Mm-hmm. It's a $30 million sports facility, and we're raising capital right now. We're there. We're like $1 million off. But we're doing it. We've already demoed our land. It's happening. But what we have to tell each other every day is keep going. And that's my mantra from basketball. It's like, you know what? Jody is working my nerves with these suicides and these things or whatever, but I would just look down at the end of the court, just keep going. That's all you do. And that is the best moniker for success for me.
It's hard to have that attitude though, isn't it?
It's absolutely hard to have that.
Basketball or life, anything.
Basketball or life. But what I learned is that people fall out. See, even it's hard for everybody. That's when we're standing at the baseline and having to run a 30-second suicide. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, that's a line drill. Some people are not going to make it. Yeah. Some people are just going to walk off the court, not at Texas, but in other places. Some people in life, it's a metaphor for life. But there are going to be 3 or 4 people who don't quit, and those people win. And that's why I do it, because I know what's going to happen. I know the odds are people are going to fall out, right? Yeah. People are going to say, I don't want to do this. and then there are going to be 4 people standing or 3 people standing, and I'm going to be one of the people last standing, and you win.
But it helps in your attitude the fact that you were on a high school team that won a state championship and then played for a state championship. You were on a college team that won a national championship. You won a Pan American championship. You won a WNBA championship. You know what it takes to win.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what really helps in that situation is to be surrounded by greatness. Yeah. Every situation, I've never gone to a team where I was the absolute only player on the team. And I almost did when I signed, before I signed with Texas. Like, I came this close to signing with SMU. I was committed to SMU. Most people don't know that. And I actually committed to SMU because my mom had died the year before, and I was very close to my little brother. I was 16 when my mom died. My little brother was 6. So he was more like my kid than he was my brother. And so when it came time to decide on college, I had to decide, was I going to stay close to home?
Stayed home,
Staying home was a very big priority because I didn't want to leave Chris. But I remember my mother saying something to me the year before she died. She said, I think she may have known she was going to die. She wasn't sick. I think she just knew. She's like, if I'm not here, you got to live your life. And I always thought that was really weird. And I said, okay. She said, what are you going to do? I said, I guess I'll keep living. And so I remembered that after I committed to SMU, and then I came to Jody. My brother called. True story. My brother Alonso called Jody and said, are you guys recruiting my sister? And she was like, we heard she committed to SMU. And he was like, nah, we'll come visit. And so I flew to Austin and I decommitted because when you get to Texas, when you get to Austin, SMU doesn't look so good. And the only thing I could think about was the SMU coach telling me that I was going to be the all-time leading, scorer or whatever. And I looked at him and I said, but I don't think I'm ever going to win a championship. And that's the most important thing to me, was not breaking all the records, scoring 5,000 points, even though that's exciting for somebody who likes to shoot. But being done, I wouldn't be playing at this time of the year if I gone to SMU, ever. I would be done in February at SMU, and I wanted to win a championship. So that's why I came to Texas.
Wow. Great story.
Yeah, that's a great story. The one thing that you said in there, I think it's so true. If you're a competitive person, whether it's business and relationships or whatever, everything's a competition in your mind. You can make it right. You can win the deal. But I've learned in business, you better learn sometimes to punt and play defense too. And so is that a hard lesson? Because seriously, because you have that can do as an athlete. If you've been successful, I can overcome this. Oh, I've come from this. I've come from that. Yeah. But sometimes you have to find that balance when on this one I need to punt and play. I call it punt and play defense. Like, I need to remove that, and you have to learn that. You have to learn that too.
Sometimes less is definitely more, and I'm learning that. I started a sports beverage company. I was on Shark Tank last January with Electra, my new sports drink company, and with the pandemic and everything, like people, their processes, their protocols, their procedures, they're like all out of whack. I've literally order ingredients for this, and then it doesn't show up, or it'll show up and then they don't check it in. And I'm so competitive, like, okay, this is it. It's got a checklist. I got a process, whatever. To when somebody doesn't do something, it's like, what? I mean, how do you not do that? Like, and then I just had to learn literally just like the last week and a half. 6 weeks and a half. I just said, okay, all right, you clearly are not in control of the fact that other people don't check in ingredients when they get to theirs. So what else can you do? How can you whatever? And I really just started practicing more empathy and compassion for the people on the other end. I don't know what is going on at your company, but how can I support you in making sure that we do this better the next time? And that became my approach over the last month, because trust me, everything is going crazy. And honestly, I couldn't control any of it.
In basketball, you don't have to have supply chain issues, but you do have to worry about teammates. It's not a one-person game. You have to worry about those other 4 people, at least on the court, and maybe even your bench. So you take those lessons and you apply it to business, and it turns out well for you.
Yeah, I mean, what you described is exactly what happened. I said, I'm not separate from my supplier. Right. I'm really not. Like, this is a team sport.
Right.
And I had to pull in some of the same tactics when you'd have a teammate going rogue, because they didn't play the game before, or you got a teammate and another teammate who don't necessarily like each other that much. but you got to keep going in the same direction. And I was always a captain on every team I've ever been on, because I'm a good relationship person, and because I know how to focus on the right thing. Y'all can fight later, y'all can fight after the season. Let's try to get this done. And so that has always been one of my favorite parts about being
running a business is a lot like running a sports team. There's no doubt about it. You're handling personnel. You're trying to motivate this person. You're trying to do, this. You're thinking, I really need to get rid of that person, but they're so good in this slot. I still need them for that. How can I massage that where I can keep them on that task and not get over here on the things that screw them up? I mean, you are trying to maneuver people all the time.
Yeah, your leadership skills are always developing, because people are dynamic, and you never know what's going on with people that's influencing the way they behave or the way they respond or react to things. So I drew a lot of experience from being on my teams at Texas. I'll share one quick story. I won't call the name, but everybody's got their personalities or whatever. Like, we have one of these teammates on our national championship team who, she would just stop talking to us. To this day, we don't even know why. That was just her thing. Like, you could have pissed her off. You could have not pissed her off. She would just stop talking. So you walk in, hey, what's up, so-and-so? And then she'd be like, and they were like, oh, okay, that thing is happening. But you got to make sure it's not, whatever it is not so far gone that it's going to interrupt what we're attempting to build here. And so then you start learning how to deputize people. As the seniors were captains, you start learning how to go, okay, go check on this person, make sure she's okay, report back to me and let me know. Because sometimes it's not going to be you. That's the other thing about leadership, is you're not always the person who's going to help make things better. Sometimes you need to help empower and support other people to go and make it more of a peer leadership thing as well.
Yeah, with all the success that you've had in so many areas, because you've been great at basketball, you've been on TV doing games, you've been a professor at the University of Texas, you've done businesses, as we've talked about. But do you ever look back and regret anything? Like, oh gosh, I should have done this or I should have done that, even with all the championships you've won?
Yeah, so yesterday at breakfast, they said, if you could go back and you could, do anything. I said I would probably go back to that summer where I was cut from the Olympic team, and I would listen to the people who said, come on, you know better than anybody how this system works. You're going to be on the 92 team. Just be mad, take a trip, and then come back and let's get back in the gym or whatever. I would do that. I would go back and say, but literally I was so mad that because everything had not gone to my plan. I was so mad that I was like, I'm done. We're divorced. I'm divorcing that. Pick it up. We're not getting back together. There will be no resolution. I would definitely do that. I would definitely redo that.
Can't blame you for that.
No.
Things work out.
It's the one thing you don't have is the Olympic gold medal, because you won everything else.
That's right.
How do you see this season? How do you, first of all, Coach Schaeffer, are you a fan of Coach Schaeffer and what he's doing? Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that hire, because I know first and foremost where his heart is, right? So you start there, people's heart is. He stomps a lot on the sidelines. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I do like him, and I do like the fact that his heart is in the right place. He wants the best for his program. He wants the best for those players. I can appreciate that. And he's one of the top 10 coaches, active coaches in the game. So whenever you can get a top 10 active coach whose heart is in the right place, we can work with everything else. So I love what he's doing. Second year, last year, y'all saw that run. If you didn't, you need to do some Googling on the run in the regional final last year. Like, that whole run was just amazing.
It was amazing. Amazing. It was amazing. I told Coach Schaeffer, I thought he helped turn around the whole athletic department in a lot of ways with that. I thought the way the girls played, their toughness, their grit, their competitiveness, I thought that was really how we should compete at everything. And I think the other teams, baseball fed off that in the spring. I think it created a domino effect that really, really helped change the culture that was needed around, in all our sports.
I agree. I could not agree with that more. It was like a blueprint. It was a blueprint how to take that. We're not the most talented. We're not the biggest. We're not the fastest. We weren't any of the great things that you need to win in this particular sport.
But we're going to get in your face and compete every moment with you forever. I mean, it was impressive. I mean,
we're going to be
he had the whole. It's just, we were watching every night, going, "This is amazing to watch."
Yeah,
and he seems to be this guy that, and some guys have it. Augie had it in baseball. that as the season goes on, even if they go through a little ups and downs, which is normal in a long, he has them peaking at the right. So I watched him do it at Mississippi State.
Yes.
The guy just has this knack for getting the team to peak and play at their best come tournament time.
That is the most important skill as a coach. I don't care what anybody says.
It's unbelievable.
It's the most important skill as a coach. Is like, if we're playing right at the right times, we have a chance. And we saw that last year. And we're seeing that this year. I mean, our defense is, I like to say, we're like the fly on your barbecue at your family reunion. Like it's not going away. Like you're trying to eat that rib and it's just not going away. And we saw that yesterday. We're not the best team in the country, but I guarantee you nobody wants to play us.
And an old baseball saying in pro ball, especially the 150, 160 game seasons, is they don't remember how you start. They remember how you finish. And that's apt for what he does. I mean, it's unbelievable.
We've had some ugly games. It hasn't been lately because we got an 11-game streak. But we've had some really ugly games, some games where I publicly said, I don't know that I can watch this team because they're too unpredictable. Like Mike, when you guys saw us play, you pretty much know what you were getting. You pretty much knew what you were going to get, right? Some teams had a chance, whatever. But for the most part, you were not nail biting when we played. We knew the brand, you knew what we were going to deliver. This team had a stretch where I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to the game, right? Because it's too stressful. I don't want to be stressed out at a basketball game. I don't. And then we started to see them turn a little bit with their consistency. And I watched the demeanor of the point guard. And that's hard when you got a freshman point guard. I don't care how amazing they are. And Rory Harmon is amazing. But I watched her go through a part where she was doubting herself, where she was not confident. And I watched her play in high school, so I knew that wasn't her. But you think about it, she's a freshman point guard on the top 10 team, playing for a very demanding coach, and she's playing 40 minutes. Yeah. And so I said, okay, I actually sent Rory a text and said, Rory, play with joy. When you play with joy, you are unstoppable. That's the only text I've ever sent Rory Harmon.
Wow.
And what I'm seeing now with her is, she's into herself. A lot of that's a relationship that she has with her coach and feeling confident and teammates and that kind of stuff. But she's playing with joy because she's amazing. 50 points in those last two games.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
Don't you think? Apologies to you and Clarissa and Andrea and all the great players from the late 80s and early 90s. But I thought one of the keys to Jody's teams was she almost always had a really, really good point guard.
Yes, absolutely. Cammy was on the floor. Yeah, Cammy was a freshman point guard on our team. And that's a lot. That's a lot when you're playing for an iconic coach and got great teammates or whatever. But that is the key. And if it is missing, I don't care how great your other leadership is. Yeah. If your point guard is not solid, then it's going to be hard for you to win. Yeah.
Well, they're winning now. Let's see how far they can go.
Yeah.
They've beaten Stanford once this year. Beat them again. They'll make it to the Final Four.
That's right. I know.
Yeah. What do you like? What do you see in the tournament? Just forecasting out.
Sure.
Who do you like? What teams, besides Texas, who do you think can make a run to win the thing?
South Carolina, obviously they were beaten in the SEC tournament by Kentucky, but South Carolina is going to be difficult to beat because they got all the pieces. They got all the pieces. They have a coach that their players are invested in. I got to say something about that because most people don't understand how important that one element is to winning a championship. If you are not invested in your coach's success, then it is very difficult for that coach to motivate you, for you to believe that coach cares about you. So that's the one thing about South Carolina and Stanford that they have. They got all the physical pieces for the team, no question. But those players love seeing their coaches win. And that's very rare. They want their coaches to win. So there's those two for sure. And then I got some sleepers. I think Texas is a sleeper from a standpoint of blasting past people and possibly surprising some folks that folks don't think they're going to beat. Yep. Connecticut, they have Paige Buckets back. I call her Buckets. It's Beckers, but Paige is back, and she's, was best player in the country last year, was out this year with some injuries. So Connecticut always has to be in the mix. And then that last spot can literally, I think that last spot is going to surprise us. It's not going to be the people that people think it is. It's not going to be, some Tennessee. It's not going to be whatever. It's going to be like, whoa, I never saw that coming. I did not see that coming.
Right.
So that's what I'm anticipating for the last.
Could it be a Mulkey-led LSU team? How do you like her first year at LSU?
Listen, did y'all see that she had Mulkey Gras, the Mardi Gras? She had Mulkey Gras there. Kim understands what I love about Kim Mulkey, and Texas fans can hate her all they want. What I love about Kim Mulkey is that she understands how to grow a program. She's one of the best coaches in the league. She's one of the best coaches for sure. That you can't even deny that, can't refute that.
Yep.
And she fights. She fights. She should have gotten attacked a couple of weeks ago and thrown out for chasing the official. But I appreciate that. I appreciate who she is. So I love what she's done there. She's definitely gonna make a run. And I don't know if they got Coach of the Year, but I can't imagine anybody else who got Coach of the Year in the SEC if Kim Mulkey didn't get it.
I'm a big Mulkey fan, and I did see that incident. What was she wearing, by the way? What was that garb she had on? I mean, I'm like, and she's a sharp dresser, and modern, snazzy looks. I'm like, what the hell? What is that?
I don't know what she had on.
She rolled out of bed in her bed t-shirt and was coaching the game. Got pissed off and went off to the official. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I'm like,
the great thing was a few years ago when she was at Baylor, she would threaten to pull off her jacket, and somebody started a Twitter account called Kim Mulkey's Jacket, and it was hilarious. So I don't know what she was wearing that day, but she's passionate. Like, you want to play for a coach like that, you just want to go, wow, she is. I mean, that was Pat Summitt, right? That's Kim Mulkey. Yep. Apparently, that's also the coach at Oklahoma. Have y'all seen her lately? She just so I love it. And Vic obviously is. I don't know how Vic stands up the entire game and works those officials, but I love that guy. I texted him yesterday. And I was like, Coach, that was inspiring. That was absolutely inspiring. So, of course, he said, praise the Lord and hook him. That was it.
Fran Harris, I love the way that you respect winners, because you're a winner as well, and we appreciate you being on our show. Thank you so much for being in the box seats, because you had some great stories to share.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate it. Take care.